Gerry Ryan, the Ryan Line on 2FM, Ireland's #1.
He has been dubbed the first celebrity chef, many would say the only, the godfather of modern cooking. He was the youngest ever chef at 33, he might even say too young to win 3 Michelin stars. A few years later, in 1999, the man who trained Gordon Ramsay retired from cooking, handing back those 3 coveted stars. He would spend and send the years that followed exploring a wanderlust for silent wilderness and the more primordial pursuits of shooting, fishing, deer stalking and pulling his wire. Well, he's back, still warm from the rigours of keeping a motley pack of 10 celebrities on track in Hell's Kitchen. Yes, he did invent it. This mercurial chef is in Ireland today discussing plans to open a new restaurant next summer, that's 2009, at Dublin's revamped Point Village. Marco Pierre White, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Gerry.
You look well. I see that you're... Have you changed your religion? It's an interesting hat.
Well, I was with Mr. Crosby yesterday, and this was his little gift to me, a little fez. It's more a nighttime look than a daytime look, but I said I'd wear it while I'm in Ireland.
But you merge both seamlessly. Nighttime and daytime mean nothing to a man
Well, I
like
don't
you.
know the difference.
No.
It's like when I woke up this morning, I said to Nick, are we an hour behind here?
I think you'll find we're on UK time here for most,
I realised.
for most of it. Now, of course, anybody who's been to Dublin recently, if you've been in or around the Point Village, or at least the Dockland area, you'll have seen the replacement for my huge, massive Soviet-style poster, and it, of course, is the even more beautiful Marco Pierre White. And this indicates, this poster, that he is to have a presence in the village. It's a wonderful slogan there, isn't there? It's I will feed you.
Great line by Harry. Great line.
Yeah.
But he's very clever, and what was very special yesterday was being shown around Point Village with Harry. And when you're allowed to share the vision of a man, it's a great compliment. And I was there walking through the mud, and I've still got the mud on my shoes today. I refused to rub it off. And as I said to Harry last night, I think when I get back to London, I'll frame my shoes and just put Point Village, because it's nice mud. It's good mud. Lucky mud.
Did you feel like you were with Pharaoh at the beginning of the building of the pyramids?
It's
quite extravagant, but I like it.
This is a man, in my opinion, who has got tremendous vision. And as I've always said, vision is when you see something in your mind and you make it happen. If you don't make it happen, you're a dreamer. And Harry Crosby is as real as they come. And I sat there humbled by him yesterday when he shared his vision with me. There's times when I think I'm clever, but I'm not in this league. This man's on a much higher level than I am.
Now, the Point Village is to have entertainment, it is to have residential, it's going to have this huge tower, and that's the heart of it as well. It has to have people living there. It will have business centres, it will have shops, Dunn Stores will be the anchor tenant. It will have a whole host of things, and of course a fabulous fish and chip shop at some stage as well, I've no doubt. Called Codpiece. Your imperator, though, was very significant because it needed style and it needed the promise of greatness. And to have that there is good. How did he sell it to you? Because guys like you are notoriously difficult to bring on board in these projects, deeply and correctly suspecting nefarious thoughts.
Well, I didn't regard myself as being difficult. But no, when I sat with Harry yesterday and Rita, his beautiful wife, I was shown a beautiful jigsaw. And every jigsaw has lots of little pieces. And when you walk around the site, you see the pieces falling into place. And this, in my opinion, is one of the most impressive projects, if not the most impressive project I've ever seen and been allowed to share with somebody. And I think it's very exciting. I really do. And I think it will contribute and enrich the lives of a lot of people, create a lot of opportunities for people, and where other people can share their knowledge, which I think is very important.
Now, you're protege, Gordon Ramsay, he chose to go to Powers Court to the...
Can we talk about something interesting?
Yes, we will. We'll leave him alone for a moment. And he's making...
Let's batter him at the end.
He's making venison and chocolate pie and things like that. And it was important for the hotel to have him. You're, I think, probably heading for something entirely different.
I'd like to meet the man who employed him.
Well, I could arrange that.
It'd be nice to meet him over a cup of tea.
And what would you say?
Because I'm always fascinated by people's logic.
Yeah, go on.
You've gone quiet, Gerry.
No, I'm waiting.
You're lost for words.
No, I'm not lost for words. I'm waiting to hear your words.
But I think
you wouldn't have employed him, no?
Well, I did employ him.
You did, of course, in aubergine.
Many years ago. No, if you're going to have a Michelin-starred restaurant and you're going to have a man's name above the door, then he should be behind the stove. The public aren't stupid anymore. People don't mind paying high prices for good food when they know the boy's behind the stove. But when they know the boy's 1,000 miles away, 5,000 miles away, why do it? Travel an hour to have something which is watered down? It's like last night I went to Chapter 1 with Harry. Ross Lewis.
Oh, yeah, what a chef.
I was there in the morning with him. He takes me round his kitchen, introduces me to all his boys, the kitchen porter.
It's a great kitchen, isn't it?
I have a cup of tea with him. Fabulous. And then last night, he's there with his wife again, looking after their clients. I buy into that. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, what did you have to eat last night?
I had veal. It was delicious. But by the time I got... Because I had to do an interview. And, as you know, I love to talk. And I'm just watching that clock go round and round, and I'm sure you've got lots of questions for me. And I did an interview with The Independent. And, you know, an interview never takes 10 minutes. You know, if you're going to do an interview properly, it's like anything. If you're going to do it properly, you've got to put the time in. So they were all eating, and I wasn't eating. And by the time I got to the table... But I had delicious veal, and which was a veal fillet, and it was with the braised belly of veal, with chanterelle mushrooms and capers. And there was some delicious croquette potatoes on the side. But what I had some macaroni, cream macaroni with truffles, which was delicious. And he's a very fine chef. He's a very good chef. And what's interesting is everything around you is consistent. You know, you sit there, you can smell Ross and his dear lady. You know, the personality I sat with in the morning is on the plate. The philosophy of the house is all around you. Martin, the manager, looks after you very well.
Martin, one of the great welcomes. Martin of the billion welcomes.
And family. And also, great crowd, nice people. You know, and it's casual dining, but in a very smart house. You know, they're not dictatorial to you, they're not dictating to you, they're not patronising you. They're controlling their environment by being subservient, which was the old-fashioned secret. That's how the great French restaurants of the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s ran their restaurants, was by controlling their environments by being subservient. Nothing was too much trouble.
Yes, and they passed, I remember the first time I really knew that these guys were getting it right. It's the martini test. It must be real vermouth. It can't be spiced.
Do you prefer it shaken or stroked?
I prefer it just straight. In fact, I just prefer it just...
Do you like it on the rocks?
No.
You like the rocks taken
straight
out?
up with a twist.
I like it straight up.
Straight up with a twist. And I cannot abide
twist or wrist, did you say?
Twist.
Twist.
And then the wrist. And they got it right. And there was a lot of attention to detail. And it was the barman said to me, Mr. Ryan, it's Nolly Prow. And I said, excellent. Now, unfortunately, I had about 7 of them, which is not a good idea before dinner. But for me, I knew these guys were serious. They knew this bastard's going to be giving out about the martini, so we're not going to let that happen.
It's like I went to a pub the other night, and the 2 things I loved about the pub in England was, 1, I had the best Bloody Mary I've ever had in my life, and number 2, every table was smoking. And I sat there, and even the proprietor, Gerry, was smoking his cigar, his stogie, sat there looking after his punters. And I thought to myself, you're a very clever boy. Because the reality is the money he's making by allowing all his locals to smoke is a fortune, because it's a pub restaurant. And when they finally catch up with him and he hits the front page, then all those people, he's got lots of PR, and all those people are going to come back to support him for standing up against the ban. And I admired him for it.
Yeah, and of course there is a ban now, isn't there?
That's right, and it's his front room. He looks after his punters and they all want to smoke. And what I did love about his pub there, apart from the obvious, is I said, "You sell cigarettes, Gerry?" And he only sold players, non-tipped. And I thought, I like you, boy, as he's in his cardigan and smoking my Bloody Mary. He was a fabulous man.
Now that you've mentioned it, the smoking ban, which was received, we went like lambs to the slaughter. Of course, there's a positive and negative side to everything. But really, for a rebellious nation, Ireland didn't even whimper when cigarettes and cigars and pipes were banned from, first of all, places of employment for the public service, and then it went to restaurants, and now it's kind of almost everywhere. And it won't be too long eventually before we've some sort of, tobacco police who stop you on the road and take you away, like the thought police in Saudi Arabia, and incarcerate you, torture you with implements and touch your bottom without your permission and things like that.
Oh, I can't wait for the police to get into position.
But they're going to do that. They'll be there. I mean, do you think it was a good idea?
If I'm really honest, I think it is the right idea. Because
you still smoke, don't you?
I still smoke, and there's more and more children in restaurants now. And if I'm really honest, it's not fair that you smoke in front of the kids.
That's the most responsible thing I've ever heard you say.
It mostly is the most responsible thing I've ever said, Gerry. I'm glad I said it with you.
Are you shocked? He's shocked himself. He can't believe he said it.
But I'm a responsible father.
Yeah, you love your children. Your children are everything to you.
They are. They're the most important.
How many children have you got?
4.
4.
And I'd have more. I would have more.
Would you?
Yeah, but I've got to get out of my present divorce. And once I'm out of that, then I'm on the road again.
Really?
I think I'm going to fall in love with an Irish girl and get married and live in Ireland. Because I've always had this magnetic pull.
But you're not going to do the Paul McCartney thing, are you? I mean, you're not going to do well, maybe you get a 2-legged woman, I don't know. But,
she used to live in my house. She went out with my best friend for
and I'm sure
years.
she's lovely. But I think when you get divorced, you should really just have a lot of casual sex, maybe, and just not get married again.
I'm just a one-man dog. I just like one girl.
Yeah.
I'm not saying forever.
At a time.
At a time, of course. You're a very funny boy. I like you. You're funny. I knew you were funny the first time I spoke to you.
Now let's go back to the 3 stars, because it's quite interesting. When you look back at the great chefs, they're all in their 40s, sometimes in their late 40s. The guys who got their first star. 1 star, you say, is no problem at all because everybody sees you as a protege and will claim that they taught you. 2 stars, well, he's catching up on me. 3 stars, this shit.
Well,
and you were only 33.
I was very fortunate. And when I say fortunate, I say because when I was a young boy, the great chefs I worked with were people like Albert Roux, Pierre Kaufmann, Nicolas Denis, Raymond Blanc. They were in the kitchen. And they weren't celebrities. Because in those days, there was no such thing as a celebrity chef. There were acclaimed chefs. There were sort of houses which were temples of gastronomy. And there was very few of them. And to get a job in these places was very hard, really hard. And I used to sit there as a young boy, just privileged to sit within that man's company. I never asked how much I would get paid or how many hours I would do. I was just praying that I got the job. And, to work with these people, I guess it was like playing football with Pele or Johan Cruyff. Those great footballers of the 70s. And I did see the golden era of gastronomy because, as I said, chefs were acclaimed. They weren't celebrities, so they weren't being pulled.
There were celebrity cooks, Fanny Craddock, people like that. But there were no celebrity
Robert
chefs.
Carrier, no, that's right. They and that's because they were on TV. They were celebrities for being on TV rather than anything else.
And they were really doing home economics more than anything else.
Robert Carrier was
which was
fantastic.
fine. It was great.
I loved Fanny Craddock.
Yeah.
Johnny,
remember?
Johnny,
stop drinking the wine.
With the old monocule.
I'm sorry, Fanny, I'll get whatever.
It was a very funny programme. And so the world that I stepped into was not the world that I stepped out of. And, is the whole criteria of Michelin when I was a boy was that you had to be behind your stove. You had to be a proprietor to win your 3 stars in the Michelin. This doesn't seem to be the deal today. I remember the day I won 3 stars in January 95, and Mr. Brown and Mr. Bulmer came to see me, and they announced it to me. They said that in the Red Guide to hotels and restaurants in Great Britain, that the restaurant Marco Pierre White will have 3 stars, which was an extraordinary moment for me in my life.
We're very excited.
I mean, and you know, to realise that you were the first British chef to win 3 stars, the youngest in the world, you know, I can go no further in my life. But as I walked them down the stairs of the Hyde Park Hotel and shook their hands goodbye, Derek Brown said to me, "Marco, never forget what made you great." And that's why 5 years later, I gave my stars back. I couldn't live that lie and pretend I was in the kitchen.
And is that
when I'm
like
not in the
giving
kitchen.
back your OBE? Were you the John Lennon of the group?
No, because you get nothing given apart from these 3 little stars and 500 knives and forks in a paper guide. But you know what it did do was it allowed me to move on. And so, being in the kitchen every day of the week, 18 hours a day, you stunt your growth as a person. And the only world that I felt comfortable within was in the kitchen, because it was the norm to me. It was the world that I grew up in. Outside of that kitchen, I was quite socially inept. I couldn't express myself. I couldn't have done a radio show like I'm doing with you today. And so what it allowed me was, it allowed me to leave that world behind, drop my status, you know, and have my freedom back. And what I did was, I did exactly the same thing as I did as a child when my mother died. I went to nature. I spent my time in the woods, by the streams, in the fields, by the rivers, fishing, shooting, stalking. But when I walked back into London 5 years later, I discovered myself as a human being. I was comfortable within my skin. I actually knew who I was, which then allowed me to do everything for the right reason. So if I decide to do a deal, I do it for the right reason. If I choose to have someone as my friend, it's for the right reason, not the wrong reason. If I choose to sit with somebody, it's for the right reason. Is why am I sitting with you today? Because I liked you. The first time I spoke to you when I was in London in the studio, you were very kind to me. You supported my book. And, you know, you're a proper person. And that's why I'm sitting here today. Not because I need 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes on Irish airtime. It's just my way of saying thank you. And I said I'd come here when I was in Ireland and see you, and I did. I'm sorry you couldn't make Hell's Kitchen, even though you were invited by Nick.
I was invited by him myself. My son was so nice. I have an 18-year-old who's just loves his food, and we went over to see The Ultimate Fighting Experience, which I have to say I thoroughly enjoyed in the Dome. Very violent, very aggressive.
Love a scrap.
Yeah, this was really bloody good fighting. And then we went to eat in your pal Ramsay's afterwards. I should have been eating with you. We should have been on Hell's Kitchen with you. It would have been very entertaining, but we didn't manage to do it. There'll be another day. When you look back now, though, and you obviously make very definite decisions. You don't do shit anymore, right? You just won't do it unless it's right for you. What does that mean for people around you? Is it difficult for people around you?
I'm a great believer in simplicity. And I think, you know, a deal is a deal, you know, and you work with people. It's not all about me. Success has many fathers. So whenever I do a deal, I'm one link within a chain. And you have to respect everybody for their individual talents or their skills or their brands. And I do believe the future of very big business is a collaboration of individual brands and talents. So if you look what Harry's doing, he's building this jigsaw. He's invited me and he's shared his vision with me. You're talking about the codpiece.
And I'm looking forward to it.
And so when you think, Harry is the ringmaster. He is the headmaster. He's putting that jigsaw together. And we're all fortunate to be a little piece within that jigsaw. And I think it will be very, very special.
I really think what you've said about knowing what's going on in a kitchen and a restaurant that's got your name over it is absolutely vital. Gary Rhodes, for instance, comes over to D4's restaurant here, and he feels fairly strongly about that as well. He comes over a lot, and he inputs quite a bit, and he's fairly passionate about it. Whether you like Gary or don't like him, he's passionate about this project, and he comes over quite a bit, and he inputs quite a bit.
I never trust a thin chef.
He never trusts a thin. That is a point. And he is thin. There's no doubt about that. Food is good there, but what will be your involvement with this? How will you impose yourself on the restaurant?
Well, firstly, I'm a great believer.
Because you can't be there every day. It's not technically possible.
No, but what I'm a great believer in is that I'm in the business of selling fun. I'm in the business of selling a night out at a price point. I'm not in the business of selling gastronomy. And I think if we're really honest, the majority of people in this world don't want gastronomy. And if they do, it's for that little special occasion in their life, when they take mother for her birthday or they take mother for her anniversary or whatever. I think it's all about fun. It's about creating something which people want to be part of. And so I think when the most important aspect of any restaurant, in my opinion, is the environment that you sit in. Because if we sit down within a restaurant and we feel comfortable, then we start to be ourselves, we start to enjoy ourselves, we start to spend our money. And then if the food and the wine is of a standard at a price point and the service is with a smile, what more do we want? It's ticking all the boxes. And that's what's very important. I've been to some Michelin-starred restaurants and I sit down in them, I just don't feel comfortable. I don't want to be there. It doesn't matter how good the food is. I'm not going back. Because it's about being yourself.
Well, I don't like being part of a science experiment. That's what I absolutely hate. I don't like...
You're told how to eat your food.
Are over-formal in a certain restaurant.
How privileged you are to be there
Myself and my
tonight.
son were at a certain restaurant in London, and out came the foie gras he'd ordered. And he says to me, "This is incomplete." And I said, "Is it?" I said, "Well, what's wrong with it?" He said, "I want marmalade and brioche with it." I said, "Well, these guys aren't going to be up for that." He said, "Well, fuck them." So he calls over the maitre d' and he says, "I want marmalade and brioche with this." "That's not how we're doing this." I said, "Well, that's what he wants."
But you know,
He got it and he was right.
But in the old world, they gave you what you wanted. And I would never say the customer is always right, because he's not right.
Oh, no. But Bowsy isn't always right.
Yeah, the reality is the only time I ever asked customers to leave is when they were rude to the staff, or their rudeness at that table overspilled onto surrounding tables and started to spoil their evening.
A
And
simple request should be
someone
dealt
wants
with.
brioche, if you have brioche, well, you should serve it with brioche or pain poirin automatically. Because you have to have your foie gras terrine with toast.
Oh, absolutely.
100%. Oh,
Whose restaurant would you say that was?
Well, I'd say it was Gordon Ramsay's.
Oh, my God.
11, 8, 11, 11, 8, 11. If you need a florist in County Meath, looking for a builder in the Liberties, Aircons, 11, 8, 11.
Don't know the name? Search by service with 11811 for any number you need nationwide. We'll text you back the number for free. For pricing information, call 1890 411 811.
Aircons, 11, 8, 11.
Show me the money.
Yes, I'd love to, all right, but it's not quite as easy as all that. There are certain procedures we have to follow.
Show me the money.
Of course, we will eventually show you the money. However, it may take a while. Have you given much notice?
Show me the money.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of forms to be filled out, and of course, if you don't do it properly, certain financial penalties may apply.
But it's my money. Why won't you just give it to me?
Having trouble getting at your savings? Open a Halifax Flexi Saver today, and not only will you get a bonus rate of 5.15% AEO on your savings, but you can also access your money whenever you want. To find out more, call 1890 81 81 81 or simply drop into your local branch. Halifax, always giving you extra.
Terms and conditions apply. Don't applicable. Variable bonus rate is paid on balances up to €10,000 in year one. Telephone calls will be recorded. Halifax is a registered business name of Bank of Scotland Ireland Limited, which is regulated by the Financial Regulator.
The most poisonous sauce in the kitchen is the chef's ego.
100% right.
100% right.
That's a great line, Gerry.
Yeah, you said it though.
You repeated it.
And I repeated it.
You're
But
funny
it's
boy.
Totally true.
It is. It's true. And, excuse me,
How's your health? Are you okay?
to the best of my knowledge.
Good.
No, I'm in the business of creating memories, selling memories.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the only thing in my industry which never dates is romance. Everything else dates. Food dates, environments date, attitudes date. But romance never dates. And what I'd like to do at the Point Village is create something which is romantic, where people come for those occasions, or they just drop in for a bite, but it still becomes an occasion. It's about creating an environment where people come to enjoy themselves.
And when they don't want to leave. That's what I love that moment when you suddenly realise, wow, I've been here 3.5 hours.
Yeah,
I don't want to leave.
But see, and what do we all do? When we leave a restaurant, we all do the same thing. We look at the bill. and we look at that bill and it costs blob pounds or blob euros, and you say to yourself, was the experience worth it? Every one of us. It's like, it's like one of the things that I spoke to Harry with yesterday and Nick, is I think what's very important is to involve individual producers and put their name on the menu. Be proud of that. Involve them, because they're going to be part of your success. So the guy who produces great steak, he's on the menu. The guy who catches your fish, put him on the menu. The guy who gets the oysters for you, put him on the menu. Be proud of what you've got. Ireland is riddled and filled with fabulous produce and great individuals. And I went to Ivan's. Produce. I went to the opening of Ivan's down the road yesterday, which was a lovely place. But the one thing I had out of all, I didn't eat any of the canopies, but I had some cheddar, which was so delicious, and it's local Irish cheddar. And I just thought, I like you, boy, rather than just getting some plastic cheddar in. And then he had some very good quality pata negra, which I did have as well. And you could see everything they've done very well. And, okay.
Where's this?
Ivan's. It's some harbour down the road, that way.
Right, okay.
Right.
Okay.
At the lights.
I've got to go to that.
But it was very nice. It's Bischoff's or something. Is it
Bischoff?
Bischoff.
Yeah.
They've opened the restaurant next door. Did they not invite you, Gerry?
No, I know the Bischoffs. These are the
Very
best
nice.
fish and chip boys around.
Very nice boys. They looked after me very well. And they'd thrown some cash at this gaff.
Oh, yeah.
And the chef was very nice. And the way they laid up the fish, and I'll tell you the one thing, do you know what the highlight of it was? They've got the fish shop. And there was a £20 plus cod there, head on. And I thought, I like this. And I like these boys for having that. And because, there's nothing more delicious than a big cod. And when you do your cod piece, your chip shop down the road at Point Village, there is the perfect sized piece of cod.
Take note of this, please.
For fish and chips.
Go on.
And what you want is, if you have a small cod, it hasn't got the flavour of, say, a cod of that size, but that size is too big for fish and chips. So I would say get fillets from a fish of about £4. So you've got some texture. So by the time the batter's cooked, the fish is perfect inside, not overcooked. But also the flavour's very good.
Because that's what happens with the small pieces.
That's
you
right.
know. It gets
always cook its skin on.
And it shrivels so that
Do you
it's
like
now...
skin?
Yeah, I do like the skin, yeah.
Very important is
But
the
I
skin.
don't like the
You can't
cod.
take the skin off.
When the shrivels inside the batter and the batter becomes a shell, the batter should be part of the fish.
Do you want my recipe for batter?
Yeah, go on.
Shall I tell the Isle of Ireland or shall I write it down for you later?
Maybe you should write it down for me later.
It's very clever.
Yeah.
It is the best batter.
And have you used it recently?
We used it in Hell's Kitchen.
Actually, those Bischoff boys, they made a celiac batter. So that guys who were celiacs could come, I think it was a Thursday night, I don't know whether they still do.
They deserve to do really well, those boys.
Yeah. We've a couple of we've got the prelays, we've got...
Great looking girls. Oh, I didn't want to leave. I said, I'll do 5 minutes. I was there for about 50 minutes.
Now, describe your perfect meal.
Okay. I won't do it in any particular order.
No, you don't have to do it in any...
But I love gull's eggs, which I think are one of the great luxuries in life, with homemade celery salt and some mayonnaise. Delicious.
This is very Evelyn Walk. Well,
I love wild smoked salmon.
Yes.
But a generous plate of it, with some lemon and some proper brown bread and butter.
Okay, organic?
Of course, wild.
Yeah.
I love fresh crab.
Yeah.
Fresh crab, but from a big cock crab, picked, and the brown meat, very important, with mayonnaise.
That's what I was going to ask you. What are you going to do with the crab meat?
Just very simple, with mayonnaise.
Okay.
Almost like an old-fashioned crab cocktail.
Oh, yeah.
I love roast chicken, but proper roast chicken, or a big capon roasted. Delicious. With all the trimmings. I want the bread sauce. I want the chipolatas. I want the roast potatoes. Yeah, I want the delicious gravy with a bit of the chicken fat poured back in. I just like simplicity. And I think, if we're really honest, what does everyone love? We love recognisable food. That's what we love.
What's the worst thing in the world when you order what you think is going to be a chop and what looks like a scroll with the bacon on it arrives and you go, ooh, where's the chop? What happened there?
Most chefs, when they're cooking, everything they do is for effect, because actually what they really do has no effect. And when you have the confidence to cook a great piece of fish a great steak, and you cook it perfectly, and you put that on the plate, because it's so good, you don't have to do much else to it, do you? Because it's that good. Just cook it. Put all your energies into the cooking of that food, and because it's such good produce, you know, you don't have to do much else to it. It's like, if I'm honest, my favourite dinner is a great ribeye steak.
Oh, yeah.
Good quality mayonnaise, good fries, and a green salad.
What kind of fries? Do you like those skinny American fries? Or do you like
if I'm really honest, I like a classic chip size, which you're going to serve in your chippy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And here's something, I'll be quite honest, I kind of like the chips down the chippy because they're never crispy, they're quite soft, and that's what you want in a butty. I love a butty when you put all that butter on.
Do you know one of the great experiences?
Do you like malt vinegar?
Yes, malt vinegar.
Oh, I love it.
Malt vinegar, but you've got to be pissed. You get the chips, not so pissed that you can't walk home. So you're slightly staggering. You open up the chip bag and this intoxication takes place, and it stings your eyes and your nostrils, and you know, I'm on. And it's also going to warm up your hands as well as you...
Oh, no. Fish and chips, I mean, if they're done properly, you know, are one of the great inventions of gastronomy. They really are. And yeah, we should be proud of fish and chips in Britain.
We're not. We don't revel in fish and chips enough. But mind you, in Ireland and England, everyone is looking for the batter recipe. No, it's going to be mine. Why isn't Marco on television anymore? He's got more charisma and is more interesting than Jamie Oliver or anybody else for that matter.
First, it was Ali v. Foreman. Then Collins v. Eubank. And now it's time for the big one. Farrelly and Scott. It ain't how hard you can get hit, it's how hard you can take it. Ruth and Damien fight it out every night to get through your texts. The Frequency with Ruth Scott and Damien Farrelly. Weeknights here on 2FM. Are you ready to take us on? 2FM. This is the Gerry Ryan Show on 2FM. Call 08457 585 285 from Northern Ireland.
Quick question on text. What is Marco's favourite sexual position?
Can I have 5 minutes to think about it?
Okay, I'll give you 5 minutes to think about that. When you gave back the 3 stars, was there also part of you saying, I don't want to be involved in having to go through the psychological demonising when you lose them?
No, it's
because we saw one poor guy kill himself. Remember that?
Loiseau killed himself,
which was out there.
But he had other problems. I think he'd floated his company. Business wasn't that great. So I don't know about his personal life, but he was in a bad place. But I saw people like Albert Roux lose their 3 stars.
And what effect did it have on him?
He never showed it, but within, you know, he'd lost his status. He'd lost his crown.
Did he lose his bottle? Did he lose his horn?
Well, I remember the day Albert rang me up, and I was at Harvard in those days, and he asked me if I knew anything about the guide. And I said to Albert, the only thing I've heard is that you've lost your 3 stars, Albert.
Oh, God. And you said it just like that, did you?
I'm not going to fib to him. That's what I'd heard through my contacts. And by midday, it happened that they'd lost 3 stars. And then what they did was they sent out a press release saying, if my memory serves me well, saying that the reason why Gavroche had lost its 3 stars is because Michel the Sun had taken over, and when there's a change of chef, you go from 3 to 2 stars, which is not true.
That's bullshit, though, isn't it?
But that was their way of wrapping it and packing it to soften the blow. But Michel's never gone on to win his 3 stars. You know, and I remember one day sitting down with Derek Brown, the head inspector of Michelin, and by this time I was a 3-star chef. And I said to Derek Brown, Mr. Brown, tell me, why did Gavroche lose their 3 stars? We heard and we read the reasons. He said, Mark, I dined there 4 times last year, or the year before, I can't remember exactly when. But he said, I dined there 4 times, and 3 of the meals I had were not 3 stars anymore. And that was from the horse's mouth.
And what does he mean by that? And how hair's breadth is it?
Because they're very clever, Michelin. They'll always order food that, for example, if you've got a soup de poisson, a fish soup on your menu, they'll order it. If you've got a terrine, they'll order it. So you can't change it because you do recognise them. And then they'll order. And they'll always order different concepts of cooking. So they like to see a braised dish on the menu. They like to see something on cocotte. They like to see something on vessie. They like different techniques. But Brown was very clever. And I once said to Derek Brown, Mr. Brown, when you go to a restaurant to inspect it, what do you look for? And he delivered the greatest answer. He said, I go to enjoy myself. And I thought, you're a clever boy, but he was a clever boy, was Derek Brown, and a tremendous amount of integrity, and didn't just dish out stars like confetti. I mean, like, I hear Japan Tokyo has just been given, the first guys come out and they've got 10 three-star Michelins. I mean, it's just dilution of what the Michelin stands for and what it represents. But obviously they've changed their rules, they've changed their criteria.
Yeah, how can that happen? How can that happen?
I think they're trying to turn themselves into a brand now. That's the only logic. I mean,
well, because the only step then after that is that there's a Michelin star restaurant chain.
Well, when I was in New York, I've dined in a few restaurants in New York, and if those restaurants were in Britain, they wouldn't have the number of stars they have, in my opinion. So, you know, it's a bit like New York. The guide to New York comes out first year, I think it was 4 3-star restaurants. Yeah, it's just not the way to do it, because Michelin was always about proving yourself, consistency over the years. So to win 1 star, you have to create that consistency. To win 2 stars, you have to prove that you're a 2-star restaurant, and consistently 2 stars to get that 2 stars. To get 3 stars, you had to prove that you were consistently a 3-star restaurant before you got your 3 stars, because even though you were a 2-star, they judged you as a 3-star. So, for example, the year in 95, I got my 3 stars. In January 94, they said, right, January 94, the guy comes out, Marco's got 2 stars. We are now going to judge him as a 3-star restaurant, not a 2-star restaurant, which is quite a clever logic.
Well, it puts it up to you.
So what it does is it means they come now, even though you're a 2-star restaurant, they're walking through because they've now ticked the box that they want to promote you. So now, because they feel that you're good enough. So now, the year of 93, they felt this is a 3-star restaurant. 94, they said, okay, now let's judge him as a 3-star. And if he ticks all the boxes, jumps all the hurdles, in 95 we'll give him 3-star. So in a strange sort of way, you've been a 3-star restaurant for 3 years before you've got it. But that was the old world of Michelin. I mean, people like Negelan, who was the head inspector of France, was a proper person. Brown was a proper person. They were real people. You
obviously don't care about that world anymore. Could you give a fig if anything that had your name on had stars or circles or quadrangles or whatever?
Say that again.
Do you care?
I like a man who repeats himself.
Do you care about whether it's stars or circles or quadrangles?
No, I don't care. It's at the end of the day, what I want to do is sit down in an environment which I feel comfortable in. Yeah. And you know something? It's like last night. The waiter doesn't come round to my left to pour my water, or the person to my left's water. He goes straight across me. I don't care. I'm not that bothered. Do I want him on his tiptoes behind my back?
No.
Trying to do it.
Waiting for half an hour until you finish your conversation.
You've got to accept, he can't get round the back of me. And if he does, it means I've got to pull my chair in, so you have to take a view on it. And he was correct. That's the way to do it.
Well, if Michelin stars don't necessarily do it for you anymore, what does float your boat? What makes you happy?
I like sitting down with nice people. Like sitting down with you today makes me happy. It makes me purr. I'm going for lunch with Dominique Kemp. Great girl. I met her in London. She did a fantastic...
That'd make you happy.
Oh, she's a great bird. But, she was very kind to me in Image magazine.
Yeah.
Did a fantastic article. And I did say to her when I was in London, when I come to Dublin, I will come and see you. And I think you have to honour your word. And she was a proper person. Really nice. And there was no reason for her to go out of her way and write something so special about me. And so I just want to surround myself with nice people every day of my life. I don't want to sit in the company of people I don't like. I don't want to do business with people I don't like. I don't want to work with people.
You also sound, Marco, now like you don't want anger anymore in your life. You don't want conflict.
Well, I never had anger. It's interesting you use that word, because when I was a young man, I was condemned many times of being as an angry young man. I used to think, I'm not angry.
In fact, it was the imposed moniker for you, wasn't it? It was like, oh, that's what he is. Bourdain.
I was labelled,
Marco Pierre.
stamped. But, there's a very fine line between anger and hurt. And one day I realised, actually, the hurt within me was being interpreted as anger. Maybe it manifested itself as anger. But actually the root of it was hurt. And I had to deal with my mother's death because I watched my mother die when I was 6. So I had to deal with that side of my life, which I'd never dealt with, because when I was 6 and my mum died, 6 to 16, my father programmed me to be a product of himself. And that's what I was. But I never dealt with the death of my mother. And so when I was 31 years old, I started to deal with the death of my mother. And what happened to me was that one day I was in the kitchen preparing pigeons, and this voice came into my head, "Who is your mother, Marco?" I sort of dismissed it. "Who is your mother, Marco?" And I dismissed it. And I couldn't dismiss it, and I said to my right-hand man, Robert, I said, "Robert, please take over. I've got to make a phone call." I went to the office, and I sat down, and I looked at the phone. I thought I could ring the old man. And they'll just say, "Your mum was a great person." I could ring my mother's sister, Luciana, or her brother, Gianfranco. No, they'll just say she's a great person. I could ring my godmother. Illogical approach. I felt the only logical approach was actually to write down every memory I had of my mother, which I did, and then start to dissect them all. And by the time I dissected them, what I realised was not who my mother was. I actually realised that I was a product of my mum. But for 25 years, I'd been this product of my father. And so from that day on, I've started to discover myself as a person and become a happier person and contented with inside myself. And, you know, I don't want confrontation. I don't want to fight. I just want to live my life, you know, and grow.
Does knowing your mother, is that hugely important to you? Like, since we last spoke, my mother died, and now I often do think of her. And I know, because I know your mother is a big influence in your life, and I think she's ever present, as a matter of fact. I think she has shaped you.
My mother, you know, she's with me every day of my life. And as, you know, she is the anchor of my life. And, you know, I get invited to lots of events, lots of things every day. You know something? Actually, it's not me.
And when you think of your mother, are you a little boy when you think of her?
Well, I've never grown up, to be quite honest, Gerry. I'm still 6 years old. I love the way you stick your tongue out at me.
Finally, before we say good day and wish everybody a happy weekend, that sexual position, what's your favourite sexual position?
Well,
or can you tell
if
us?
I'm really honest, it's got to be on the hip. It started on the hip, didn't it?
It started on the hip.
Gerry